So welcome back to One True Podcast. With me, as always, is John Werner. Johnny, good to see you this week. Last week you had some technical difficulties with your webcam.
Well, my more technically aware wife set me up with a webcam, so I'm doing better this week.
There you go. All right. Well, good. And you have a little glow coming over your shoulder, so it makes you look like an angel. Which
very angelic.
Yes, which we know is not true. But joining us this week, we have Kevin Reynolds from the Salt Lake Tribune. And Kevin, first of all, just, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So Kevin grew up in New Jersey, but he went to high school and college in the Dallas area. Where at?
In Frisco.
Frisco. Okay.
Yeah.
Good deal. And worked for the morning news, covered high school football. So we like those kind of roots. We've all done it, and still do it, really. But you've been at the Salt Lake Trib now for 9 months, covering BYU, correct?
That's right. Yeah. So
awesome.
It's always good to have a Texas team come to Provo.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Get a little of that Lone Star connection here. So, you kind of hit on it. Obviously, it's a big-time Big 12 matchup this week, top 25 matchup. We've actually got a couple of them in the Big 12, but we'll get to that other one. So, number 9, Baylor goes to Provo, play the 21st ranked Cougars now. So, guys, on paper, this sets up as a pretty enticing battle to me. I mean, certainly the bookies think so. So and I feel like either team has a pretty even chance of winning this game, again, reflected in the line. So let's play it out like this. I'm going to give each of you beat writers a chance to kind of pave the path to victory for the teams you cover. So we'll start with Kevin here. Kevin, BYU wins this game if?
I think it all starts for BYU with the defensive line. I think last year when BYU went into Waco when they played Baylor, I think every coach has said that BYU just couldn't handle the physicality of that game. Can't compete with the offensive line at Baylor. They couldn't get pressure on the quarterback. They couldn't stop the run. And I think it showed. And I think this year and this offseason, there's been kind of a progressive build to and a desire to get bigger on that defensive line for this game in particular, and also for the Big 12, obviously, down the road. And I think it's a very similar thing for BYU to when they played Wisconsin in 2017 to 2018. Obviously, the first time they played Wisconsin, they were not physical enough, and they lost. They gave up 40 points. They lost 40-16. Then the next year they come back and they made adjustments and they beat Wisconsin the following year. Now, I don't know if BYU is going to beat Baylor, but I think it starts right there. And I think on the offensive side of the ball for BYU, the key is always having Jaren Hall take care of the football. I mean, Jaren Hall traditionally hasn't thrown a lot of interceptions. He had a bad one last week, but I think for this offense, we don't really know if the top 2 receivers are going to be completely healthy. Puka Nacua and Gunnar Romney have dealt with health issues. So if that's the case, Jaren Hall is going to have to take care of the ball and not give Baylor too many chances, because really the offensive firepower right now for BYU is a little bit in question. So taking care of the ball and handling defensive line, I think the 2 biggest things going into this game for BYU.
So, John, your turn. Baylor wins the game if?
Yeah, I think it's the same recipe as last year. Baylor's probably going to try to stop the run first. They did a great job of it last year. BYU only had 67 yards rushing. Tyler Algier only had 33, and he ended up with 1,600 yards for the year. So that will be a big thing. And I think another thing is Baylor's really got to use its speed on offense. And I think they've got a lot of speed at wide receiver. They showed it in the first game. Monterey Baldwin had a 47-yard touchdown catch, 50-yard touchdown run. Hal Presley, the guy transferred from Auburn, he had a 38-yard touchdown catch. I think speed is probably one thing Baylor's got an advantage over BYU. I think one thing, the first thing Coach Aranda mentioned was how physical, old school BYU is. So he's expecting just a very tough, hard game, but they're going to have to hit some shot plays, I think.
Yeah. So obviously these two teams have a lot of respect for one another. John, you just mentioned Dave Aranda and his expectation for the game. We've also seen it with Coach Kalani there at BYU. Some of the comments that he's made this week, just very respectful of Baylor. And, that's a coach thing that they do anyway, but it really seems to be genuine in this case. Obviously, you're probably not going to be seeing that with Nick Saban and Jimbo Fisher when those two teams play. But certainly, though, all that said, they all respect each other, blah, blah, blah. The Cougars want some payback, don't they? I mean, you mentioned that game last year, 38-24 in Waco. I mean, Kevin, is there a sense, of, at least among the players, that a little payback would be sweet?
I don't even know if it's amongst the players as much. I've asked a lot of players this, and they've been hesitant to kind of embrace that. But I think from the coaching staff, they have not been as hesitant. I mean, we were talking to Eliza Tuiaki yesterday, BYU's defensive coordinator, and he was like, listen, last year we were not up to the challenge of this game at all. And I think this year we need to see a growth in comparison to Baylor. And Baylor, obviously, we talked about how complimentary Kalani Sitake was to Baylor, saying that they were kind of the standard of the Big 12 right now. And they're also a program that I think BYU definitely sees themselves in going to the Big 12. There's a lot of parallels between the institutions and just the way Baylor built this thing. So I think for the revenge factor is definitely there. I think for the coaching staff, maybe not as much for the players right now, but the interesting part to me is that this game not only is the revenge factor, but I think this game, you could make the argument that for BYU, it's the biggest one in the independence era at home. They haven't played a team. This is the highest ranked opponent that BYU will host in Provo since 2004 against USC when they came to town. There's haven't been a ton of top 10 teams to come into Provo in the independence era. So the revenge factor is there. The magnitude of this game is there. And then obviously the parallel of the Big 12 is there for BYU. So I definitely think that this is a game that BYU wants to win and gets up for.
Yeah, John, what do you think?
Oh, yeah, I think BYU is going to be way up for this game. Baylor, to me, that game last year really kind of solidified. Nobody really knew how good Baylor was going into last year. And, of course, they had already beaten Iowa State before that game. But, man, then they beat a ranked BYU team, a good team, pretty handily. I thought, pretty much controlled the game. So, I think, I think BYU is going to be way up for this game. And I think the Baylor players know it. I think they're going to be, prepared for that. And I'm sure Coach Aranda and his staff has been pounding that into them, that this is going to be a difficult game and they better be prepared in every way.
Yeah, no doubt. So, Kevin, you mentioned BYU, the independent era. That's really all they've known. They've been an independent for a long, long time. But it seems like, just from us here in Waco, watching it from the outside, that the BYU fans have really embraced this move to the Big 12. They're excited about it. Obviously, it comes up next year. So why now? What makes this situation so unique?
I think in terms of how they got into the Big 12, I think it was out of necessity, to be honest with you. I mean, conference realignment hit and the Big 12 was looking at who are we going to go to at this point? And I think BYU was a team kind of on the fringes for a really long time of this discussion of conference realignment. Tom Homo talked about, the BYU's athletic director, he talked about how the independence era has been extremely difficult on BYU. They did not want to be an independent, quite frankly, and they've been looking to get out of that situation for a really long time. And it kind of all came together during conference realignment. BYU, obviously the national brand that they have, I think made sense for the Big 12 at that time. There's still a lot of progress to be made for BYU to be fully a Big 12 member, and I think everybody acknowledges that in Provo. But I think the timing just perfectly lined up for BYU. And it'll be interesting to me. I think this is the type of game where it's like, how do you really fit into the landscape of the Big 12? You're going into a conference that's mainly stationed over 1,000 miles away from you. And that's just the truth. And Kalani has talked about, hey, we want to start recruiting Texas. We want to start doing all these things. Well, you're going to have to beat teams like Baylor to do that. And it's always going to be a challenge. So, but in terms of this moment in BYU, it's kind of unique. And I think the table just kind of came together for them all at once.
Yeah, you mentioned, out of necessity. I think that's a great point. In this new sort of age of college football, where it seems like we're trending toward these super conferences. I mean, you kind of want to be in one of those Power 5 mixes, and BYU's been talked about before with the Pac-12. Now the Pac-12 is starting to splinter with USC and UCLA going elsewhere. This is a good fit. I mean, when it happened, when OU and Texas shocked everyone in the Big 12 and left for the SEC, Bob Bowlesby was certainly caught off guard. I felt like the Big 12 did a good job of going out and getting the 4 best available free agents, is what I would call them. And BYU really, to me, was the jewel of that group. I mean, as Kevin said, a program that's had a lot of success as an independent, but looking for a home, and it's a good marriage.
And another thing too, I think it always helps in conference realignment to be successful right before this all happens, right?
Yeah.
Coming off of the 10-win season last year, and then you followed up with a 10-win season in 2021. But I think that's something that Kalani Sitake talked about, is like, that, if we have a 4-win year and then, you're looking at a 5-win season, which they've had in the independence era, like, is it the same discussion? Maybe, yeah, but maybe not, right?
Right. No, I think that's a great point. In fact, it's been kind of interesting to watch fans from the Big 12 already sort of like claim the new schools. Like, look at them, they're winning. Look at Cincy, they're winning. So the fact that BYU has done well, I think everybody's like taking a little pride in it. They're like, yeah, they're one of us now. So good stuff. All right, let's turn our attention to that other top 25 game in the Big 12. So we got top-ranked Alabama going to Austin this week to face Texas. Now, Texas is not ranked in the AP poll, at least if they are, I might have missed it. But they're 22 in the coaches poll. I feel like the writers got that right, by the way. So the Tide is not the only team coming to Austin, by the way. You have ESPN's College Game Day. You got Fox's show, a big noon kickoff. I saw a tweet from our friend Brian Davis over at the Austin American Statesman. He tweeted that the Today Show was flirting with this idea of coming. I haven't heard any final plans on that. Haven't been keeping up with it. Am I crazy? But this game feels like it has bloodbath written all over it. Are these TV folks just signing up for a front row seat to watch the Titanic go down? I mean, what do y'all think on this game? John, I'll start with you.
Well, yeah, Bama's a 20-point favorite. That might be low.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, they're a great program. Texas is unproven. Bryce Young, he's getting $3 million a year in NIL endorsements, apparently. So, yeah. And, Quinn Ewers, I think I read that his car was towed.
Yes. I saw him tweet that out.
His first game at Texas. I mean, that's not a real good sign either. So
no, it's not. They should know that starting QB's car.
Right. No, I think Bama's going to kill him.
Yeah. I think you're right. I mean, Texas. I mean, maybe they just hadn't been to Austin in a while. I don't know. Kevin, what do you think?
I mean, I'm on the same wavelength as you guys. I don't even see how this is really a game even remotely competitive. I think it's a first quarter a done type of game. I don't really know. If Texas can even keep this one to 30, I'd be pretty shocked, to be honest with you.
Yeah. So here's what y'all do if the BYU Baylor game turns out to be really, really good. Y'all should be flexing on Twitter going, oh, College Game Day should have come to Provo. What were they thinking?
In the Today Show.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So finally, just one thing we kind of always close with here. We always talk about food because we're sports writers. And we call this our culinary corner. So Kevin, you've been out there for 9 months now. You've got a little knowledge of Provo, of obviously Salt Lake. So John is headed out there for the game. He'll be flying out on Friday. Is there any particular favorite eating place that he needs to hit?
I'll give you a serious one, and I'll give you a kind of a funny one that I'm not proud. But so the first one, I think, I'm from Texas, obviously, and I've always been looking for some good like Mexican food here. So Red Iguana is a restaurant that's really good in Salt Lake.
Yeah.
It's like kind of a chain actually, but I love it. It's really good. So that's the one I would suggest seriously. But then at this game, I think a lot of BYU fans would probably be remiss if I didn't say this one is a cougar tail. And it's basically a large foot-long donut situation going on with like glazed sugar on top. I've never had one. They do not,
wow.
not appealing to me. But that is the food that I think if BYU fans were like, oh, what food should you try? That's the one that, that's the best seller in the stadium. So like that's something that's interesting if you want a true taste of what BYU
cougar tail.
Yeah.
Hey, Kevin, I'm 65. That might kill me.
Hey, it might kill me, and I'm 23. So,
so John, I may need you to bring me back a cougar tail. That sounds pretty friggin' good. That sounds really good. Kevin, I've been to the Red Iguana.
Really?
So my church has taken a mission trip to Salt Lake before.
Okay.
And with our youth group, and I went as one of the chaperones, one of the sponsors, and yeah, it shocked me that there was this like really good Mexican food in Salt Lake City, but it's legit. It's good.
I was talking to when I first got here, I was talking to my editor and he was like, do you want to go to lunch? I was like, sure. And he was like, oh, we have this great Mexican place. I did not believe him. I was like, oh, no way.
Yeah.
I'm from Texas. No way. But it was good. It was good.
I think I'll go with that one. I'm pretty sure that cougar tail would
kill you. Yeah. Come on, John, man up.
We need you for the game. We need you for the game.
Yeah, for sure. Good stuff. Well, so there's some notes for you, Johnny.
All right, I've got them on my phone already.
All right, I like it. I like it. Absolutely. No, it is always a little shocking when you find good Mexican food outside of Texas. Maybe if you were to go to California or New Mexico or something like that, you're going to find it there. But one of my favorite, like, just sort of funny bands is Bowling for Soup. They're a pop punk band, and they have a song way back from the 90s called Ohio. But it's a girl who goes off to Ohio, and they're telling her to come back to Texas. And one of the things they say in the song is, besides, the Mexican food sucks north of here anyway. I mean, I always sing that song with pride. It's like, yes, nobody has good Mexican food but Texas, but you can find some in Salt Lake. So there you go.
All right.
Yeah, good stuff. Good. Kevin, thanks for joining us, man. We had a lot of fun. We'll certainly tag you on Twitter and when we tweet this out and stuff, but y'all enjoy the game.